That's the scary part. So am I. So it's going to be very easygoing. We like to just, play it loose. I got some questions that I would love to ask you, see
Okay.
what you think about it. And, just hear what your advice is for the students, see what you would like to pass on,
Sure.
to a new generation of artists. What do you think that they should be doing? Things like that.
I'm the old guy now. Shoot.
No, you're not. Don't say things like that.
Hey, so we ready to go?
Yeah, I'm ready to go right now. We're going to hit it.
So for all you, so here's what I'm going to tell you as the students that are there. It's interesting because you guys know the Kubert School is one of the few places almost globally, but for sure in America, that you can go that will sort of teach you comic book storytelling, right? The vast majority of us, as you guys know, I would say 98% of us are all self-taught. And part of it is because, like, when I went to school, I've got a college degree, but nobody's going to teach me at my school anything about comic books. They were going to teach you art. They were going to teach you, art history. They're going to teach you some dynamics of it. They even teach you how to maybe become a fine art painter and have a gallery showing. But illustration as a whole isn't really a profound thing that they look at. As a matter of fact, I've told people before in my art classes that I took, when I told them I wanted to be an illustrator, that was actually like a cuss. That was a cuss word to them. And I ran into it because I was in classes where they wanted me to be a fine artist and do a gallery showing. And that was sort of what the classes were. So, and maybe you guys have taken some of these classes in the past. Like I remember one specifically where we cut a pimento in half and we put it on a pedestal, and over the course of that class, it rotted. And every week we had to basically draw the rotting pimento in a different medium, either painting or charcoal or whatever it was, right? And that was somehow supposed to rekindle something in us. But I remember having the conversation with more than one of my teachers saying, I want to be an illustrator. And one of them specifically said to me, Todd, you know what an illustrator is? I went, yeah, it's what I want to do. I want to be an illustrator. Of course I know what it is. And they're going, it's a whore. You know what a whore is? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm over 50. I know what it is. So they go, an illustrator basically lets other people tell them what to draw. They give them money and they have to do what that person's telling them to draw. It's an artistic whore. Okay. Then I guess I wanted to be an artistic whore. Here's my counter to them. I wanted to have a job that I could do on a regular basis, have fun, make a few dollars, and, oh, by the way, not have to eat macaroni and cheese, live in a studio apartment, have a 12-watt light bulb, and every 3 years do a gallery showing and call myself an artiste, right? I let them have that life. God bless them. I actually wanted to pay the electricity bills. So I didn't think being an illustrator was a bad thing. But like I said, there wasn't a lot of help for a guy like me. So you guys are fortunate. I just tell that story because you guys are fortunate that you've got some commonality of people that are not poo-pooing some of your basically career choices right now that are going in there. Let me also say that breaking into comic books is not an easy task. I'm sure you guys know this, that I don't think it's any different than being a musician or being an actor. You're going to have to just pound your samples at people over and over and over until somebody finally gives you a job. So if you have thin skin, it's not going to be a good occupation for you, especially at the beginning, because you're going to get a lot of no's, you're going to get a lot of rejections. Every page you draw for the rest of your natural life, the rest of the world won't like it. You hope that a lot of people like it so you can make a career, but everybody's not going to like it, which is okay. I long ago, once my mom and my wife said they didn't like what I did every day. I was good with it. But besides the skill set that has to go with being an artist, there has to be almost a selfishness that what you're doing will work. If it's been 20 years, it might turn into delusion because maybe you're not that good. I mean, I could try being an opera singer for the rest of my life. You can admire my tenacity, but I'm probably never going to be an opera singer. So at some point, you have to be realistic about it. But at the beginning, you should just be tenacious, right? And the thing that I always tell people too that will help, I think, ease the rejection, and we're all going to get it. You're all going to get it at some point, unless you're just, phenomenal right out of the gate. Is to just assume that they're going to say no in advance. I think it's the easiest thing that you can do to your body. Just assume, do your best work, send it in. Assume they're going to say no. Assume they're going to say no, and it won't break your heart when they do, because you're going to get a lot of it up front. And at some point, they'll break that streak of no's, which you can't let sort of get into your soul. And when they finally say yes, it's a good day. I am telling you, it is a great day when you get that first yes. If you flip that and you think they're going to say yes all the time, you will get crushed 20 times. And by the time they say yes, you will have sucked out the energy out of you. So assume they're gonna say no. Assume they're gonna say no, and you're never gonna get beat up, right? Last thing, there's a lot of companies, there's a lot of books, there's a lot of editors, and let's say there's probably 400 of them. Here's how many people you need to like you to become a professional. That's it. Who gives a shit if the other 399 don't like you? If you got one that will give you the job, you're a pro. You're a pro. You're in the game. So don't worry that everybody doesn't like it. Not only your mom and the people around you, but that all the editors and all the companies like you, right? That's okay. I've told the story before that I was sending my samples off to every editor. Every month, I just inundated them. And when I finally got the first one person to say yes, which was at Marvel, I was working for Marvel because they gave me a job, and I was doing a 10-page backup story. So I was a professional. But because I'd sent off so many samples, I was still getting rejections from the other 12 editors at Marvel saying, "You'll never work for us." While I was working for Marvel as a pro, I was getting rejections from Marvel saying, "You will never work for us as a pro." Why? Because they were talking for themselves. They weren't talking for all the other editors at that point. So just put your stuff in front of as many people as possible, and you're gonna increase your chances of getting that one yes. And then at that point, it's on you, and you have to perform. So anyway.
When you say putting it out in front of as many people as possible, what do you think are the best ways for people now to get it out? I mean, is it just by using the internet? Is it by self-publishing? What do you think is the best option for new artists today to get it out and in front of everyone?
So Anthony, and to everybody else, I wouldn't limit myself, right? So when it was me, I mean, I was limited by what I could do. We didn't have the internet, right? I'm going to age myself. So I would go and do my drawings and then make Xerox copies. And again, when I tell people I sent out over 700 samples, it wasn't 700 different samples, right? I mean, again, it was, I did my 5, 6, 7, 8 pages, and then I went and I made 20 copies of each one of those pages, and I sent them to 20 different people. So if I'm guessing that the 22-year-old Todd of today, I probably would be doing all the above. I'd be going to the websites that you can just post your stuff. You know, those portfolio sites like DeviantArt and all those ones. So there's a place you can go. I'd be sending it to the website that are looking for artists, whether they're professional like Marvel or DC. You don't have to start at the top. And then I would be making hard copies and literally sending stuff through the mail, right? And here's why: because I bet you a lot of people aren't doing it. So that editor is probably not getting a lot of submissions tactfully that he can open up and look at. Maybe he's got a lunch break and he's only got 5 samples. Back then, everybody had to send it that way. So you had a pile. There was a slosh pile. And so I don't know, any way you can deliver your art, you think, to a set of eyeballs of people who give jobs, I wouldn't rank them. I'd do them all. If it was me, I'd do them all. So,
yeah. Here's a question we've got, and I think it's cool. What are things that you did in the beginning of your career that you thought were the right way of doing things that you would consider to be a mistake now? And then the flip side of it, what would you consider to be something that you knew you were right to do when starting out that you're still proud of doing?
Or that I was wrong about? I'd do the opposite. So
both sides of the coin.
Let's tackle that question. The thing that I was wrong about, but I thought I was right about, is that when I was sending off all those samples, I actually thought I was good enough to get in. That's why I was sending them. Right? Why would you send them in if you didn't think you were good enough? So every time they sent me a rejection, and I've got hundreds and hundreds of rejections, literally. I just beat my chest. I'm competitive, and I just went, oh yeah, I'll show them. And the way I showed them was I just did more samples. I took whatever critiques they had and I applied them. But I just go, oh yeah, you guys are wrong, and I do it again, and then they reject me again for another month, and I go, oh, yeah, and I do it again, and I do it again, and people go, oh my God, Todd, 700 samples, hundreds and hundreds of rejection, man. But in hindsight, they were right. When I look at those samples, because I have them all, right? I mean, people go, you still have your original samples? Well, yeah, because I was an amateur and nobody wanted them. So I have all of them. When I look at them, they weren't professional ready. So they were actually, all those rejections were right. But because I'm just competitive, I didn't know they were right. I thought they were wrong. And so I just was stubborn enough to go, I'll send you more, right? If I was smart enough to know they were right, I might have got discouraged. So a little bit of delusion early in the game, a little bit of immaturity actually is okay, because it wasn't about me. It was always about them, right? They're wrong, not me. So that piece, because of the artwork that they rejected, if I had seen it from one of your students today, I would be making the same comments, right? You're not ready yet. You're not ready yet. You're not ready yet. The other one is, what was it? What's the flip of that one? What was the beginning of your question?
The flip side of that was, what would you consider to be something that you knew you were right to do when starting out that you're still proud of doing? And I think you kind of answered it, to be honest.
Yeah, just look at. I don't think anybody should get any extra bonus points for being for advocating for yourself, right? I mean, I get that. You go, Todd, man, you're so tenacious and whatever. Like, no, I'm not tenacious, and I'm not even original. And I understand as I get older, there's certain personalities that have to come into play. So I think I can do anything. So just put that to the side. But the reality of the world is, and we all know this intellectually, but at times I think we need to be reminded. Every morning I get up, I only have control over one human being. One. It's me. It's me. And so if I'm not advocating for me every day, because I don't know who got up today, this morning, out of 8 billion people, and their thought was, gosh, you know what? What can I do to make Todd's life better? I don't know who that individual was. right? And it's a big, heavily populated planet. There was one guy who actually had that thought, right? And that was me. And so the reason I sort of say that is it's interesting, and you probably run into it with your students. And it's always the sort of the frustrating piece is when you have a student that actually has skill, a person has skill, but they don't have the confidence to go with it, right? I mean, there's two components of anything. I coach a lot of baseball. There's two things I look for in all my players. One, the heart, the confidence. And I love it when I go up to a kid and I go, hey, I hear you're the stud of your team. And they go, yes, I am. Now that gets me halfway there because I go, I like the attitude. Now I have to see whether they have any skill to go with it, right? I mean, so there's two pieces of it. But the one that's frustrating is the one where there's the skill. We can see the skill and the confidence is lacking. And so I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with that. Here's what I can tell you is the reality. If you don't care enough to fight for yourself, who else in the world should? Because if I'm trying to fight for Dennis and his beach background, and Dennis doesn't care because he's meek and mild, then at some point I'm going to see that and I'm going to say to myself, well, if Dennis doesn't give a crap, why should I? Why am I working so hard to get Dennis' career going, to try and give him a break when Dennis isn't even advocating for himself, right? So I get it that there's different personalities, but if you want this to be your job, if you want this to be your career, you have to throw the switch off and stop being shy at certain times. Nothing wrong with letting people see your work and telling them how good you are and showing them that you will work as hard as possible and doing whatever. I mean, like, do it. And any way you can get there, do it. Look, I remember years ago I went to a San Diego comic convention when they were small, and Jim Shooter was the head of Marvel Comics, and he was doing a portfolio thing. You know, you can get in line and they do a portfolio review, and that lineup was like about an hour and a half long, and I got there way too late, and they were going to close it down in a half an hour. I was never going to get my portfolio seen. So now you have to start thinking about plan B. I'm going to send my stuff to him the next day anyway. So if I never get to Jim Shooter, I'm sending him my stuff anyways. But I just sat and I waited, and I'd been waiting. He'd been there for a while. And so what I did was I knew that there was something I could take advantage of, which my plan B, and that was, God bless humans, is that we all have a bladder. And Jim had to take a pee break in the middle of it. And so I followed him into the bathroom. Literally, I pretended that I was going in the stall next to him. All right, I washed my hands next to him. And then just as we were both leaving, I said, hey, Mr. Shooter, hey, I've got something I could show you. I know you're busy. Can I just show you a couple pieces? Now, he knows he probably shouldn't have because he had a whole lineup waiting. But he stopped and looked at my pages, and he gave me some comments. Did I get a job? No. Was he overly impressed? No. But did I get 2 more pointers that I would never have gotten if I had stood in line because I was too lazy to have gotten there a little bit earlier? Yeah. So I don't know. There's like, okay, taking the fake pee next to the editor-in-chief of Marvel. I don't know. It's probably not the way to do it for most people. But I'm just using it as an example of you just have to check some of your shyness because if I didn't do that, those 2 pieces that he gave me might have been what I had put on my follow-up samples that may have been one of the things that led to somebody finally saying yes. I don't know. So I was greedy enough to just go, I'm just going to get as much information as I can. If I've got to literally follow a guy into a restroom, then I'll do it.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. Yeah, everybody go follow.
Oh, man, you think I'm going to have that on all the tests later this week? Next week. Now, it's over. Question for you. Is it worth chasing after the big 2, in your opinion, or should new creators just focus on creating, utilizing things like web comics or crowdfunding platforms?
I I wouldn't put any self stops on myself. I
Hmm.
mean, if you, I have this theory that skill with a little bit of hustle will eventually get recognized, right? I mean, there's so many books out. There's so much work that needs to be done, especially now. You know, we're living in an era where nobody wants to do monthly comic books. If you can do monthly comic book, you become gold real fast. You don't even have to be good. You just have to say, I do monthlies. Bam. I think that gives you a giant head start. But I would just let your students, all of you, I'd advocate just draw to whatever style appeases you, right? Don't try to modify something if you're not that kind of artist. I mean, if you like manga style, or you like cute fuzzy bear style, like you may be the best at doing that. Probably there's not going to be a book that works at Marvel or DC to fill that, but that's okay. There's plenty of other places now that do art that are not the big two that will do it. But if you don't mind what Marvel and DC are doing, which is sort of superhero Americana comic books, and you think you can do that style, then send it in. Look at what's the worst that happens? Look at Anthony, what's the worst that happens? You send in your samples and they all say no, which means every one of your students who doesn't have a job tomorrow will not have a job. There's no going backwards. There's no negative for doing it. There's only a positive. But what happens if one of your 40 students sends in their 5 best pages and somebody says yes, then 1 out of the 40 or maybe more has got a job? Like, look, I tell every one of my employees every day, you should walk in my office and ask for a raise. I'm probably going to say no almost every single time. But here's the thing. If I say no, you're getting paid the exact same amount when you walked in the door, right? What happens if you get me on a weekday or I'm just tired and I just go, yeah, fine, go talk to HR. Boom, you got it, right? If you don't have anything yet and you attempt it and you fail, you still have nothing. You've lost 0. This is the piece that is bizarre to me, that people go, yeah, but what if it doesn't work? You got nothing. I mean, look, when we started, just before we started Image, I want to start a union, artist union, because if the artists could get together as a whole, as a giant community, I'm talking everybody at Marvel and DC, and then we would have power, because they have to print books. And the only way they can print books is if we're doing work. So we would have basically a voice at the table. And I couldn't get that there. And you know why? Because dozens and dozens and dozens of people I talked to were like, well, what if they blacklist me, Todd? And I'm going, blacklist you? Okay, let's just do the checklist right now. Okay, A, Marvel and DC are not giving you any work right now. B, you're not making any money. C, you live in a flop house. D, you have no car, and E, because of all of that, you have no relationships. I promise you that if you join this union, I will at least match everything that you have, which is no job, no money, no car. Like, what are you talking about? The most afraid people to join were those that had nothing. I was doing Spider-Man at the top of the game, making the most money, getting a lot of the prestige, and I was willing to throw it all away. And those that didn't have anything yet were going, well, what if they blacklist me? They're not giving you a job right now. How can somebody take anything from you that isn't even giving you anything of value right now? Why give them that power, right? But anyway, it's a long-winded way is like, yeah, Marvel and DC, go. If you can get in, get in. It's a good stepping stone.
What do you think? Really, the big mistakes that current companies are making. What do you think's wrong with the comic industry as it is right now? That's a super loaded question, but
yeah, wrong might not be because they're doing a lot of right. So
what could they do better?
I think it's I'm biased. One of them is I still think they could do a better job at getting the input and the voice of the creative community more. It was the single reason why I left, for me, because at that point they're doing a lot better job of it, but at that point they were rarely, if ever, asking any input from the creators, which I thought was a odd thing. They would do seminars and they would do their summits, and they would schedule out what they were going to do in all the books creatively without asking any of the creative people. Thought it was a bizarre thing, right? But you guys do you. I don't know. I'm trying to. I don't know. They seem to be. I talk to a lot of other people. I think they underpay people. Let me just say that. I think they try to figure out, and part of it now with the internet is that you have access to people globally, and because everybody's economics aren't the same, you can now find people in other countries that will do the work at half the price, and the quality is just as good, if not better. But it's arguably the same reason why I manufacture my toys in China, right? I can get them made and manufactured at a cheaper price, so I can sell them here and at a reasonable price. So they're just doing the same thing. It means that you're in competition now with not only more people on the global scale. I never was. Basically, you have to be in America to do American comic books, but you're also up against a pay structure. So it's if there's one thing that I hear constantly from the creative community, I think they for the most part think they're deserving of better page rates than they're getting right now, which sometimes they tell me what they are, and I'm horrified. I'm horrified at it. But they can do it. So
cool. And then with everything that's changing in comic books, the landscape with the rise of crowdfunding books and the independent push and web comics taking such a big part in things, how can the current mainstream companies, and I'm using the little quotes, air quotes on there, how can they stay relevant moving forward as they compete against it?
Wow. So Anthony, I'll argue their side of it. They're going to always be relevant, and here's why they're going to be relevant: because they're going to have more eyeballs. And at the end of the day, you got two choices, or there's a combo of the two. You're either looking for money or you're looking for eyeballs, right? So you want to go do a Kickstarter because nobody's going to give you a job and you can make money. God bless you, right? So you can do it. But if you pay attention to Kickstarter, and I do, and I just did a toy one, you can get a lot of money from a few amount of people. Long term, a few amount of people is not going to work. What you need is eyeballs. I would advocate to try and get less money and more eyeballs, because over time you can convert the eyeballs into capital at another time when it's right. So it's not a comic book example, but I just did a toy that came out. I did my first toy on Kickstarter. We set a record, Kickstarter record for the most money and the most backers ever for an action figure. The number of backers was 23,000. If I do a Spawn figure or a Superman figure, and I do it and I sell it through Walmart and Target and Toys R Us, and I only sell 23,000, it's a failure. So yes, I know that a lot of people saw the big number that went with those 23,000, but it's still only 23,000. If I'm selling 23,000 copies of a Spawn comic book, that's not very good. So what's going to get you the long-term sort of branding for your character, for you and your book, your new idea, is to have your book not from time to time make money, because you're not going to be able to go to Kickstarter every week, is to have your book on some kind of chart that you can show other people to get them to pay attention to it. So they're not searching. Hollywood, to use an example, isn't necessarily searching Kickstarter. They're searching, for the most part, the Diamond Distributors top 200. Right now, on that subject. And I every time I go up on stage, I give the hallelujah speech. I'll give it to every one of you guys right now. Right now is the best time, and is the best time to do creator-owned books right now. And the reason is because Marvel and DC are already bought. They're off the street, right? Marvel is owned by Disney, gone. They're not going to share. And DC is owned by Warner Brothers. It just recently got bought by AT&T. So they're gone. So who does that leave? Every other person on the planet, other than those two companies, that are looking for content with the word comic book attached to it. So I keep saying to people that if you put out a comic book, and I understand everybody, like, stop trying to be in the top 10. Stop trying to beat Wolverine. Stop trying to beat Spider-Man. Why? Because the companies that are searching can't get Wolverine and Spider-Man and Batman. They're off. So when you look at a Diamond Comics distributor list, and you're anybody other than Disney and or Warner Brothers, AT&T, you have to have a big fat Sharpie in your hand. And if it says the title of the book and the publisher, which is Marvel or DC, you have to draw a black line through it because it's not available, right? In government terms, it's called redacting. You have to literally redact all those lines out. Okay, so if you do your comic book and it's number 147 in the top 200, you may think, oh, it's not very good. I'm not doing too well, whatever else. It depends on what your lifestyle is. You can still make a living. But if somebody is, especially from Hollywood, is looking, and that's one of your aspirations, to try to get out to even more eyeballs, they have to redact all the Marvel and DC. Number 147 may actually be number 3 after they redact. You may be the 3rd most valuable available item for them to talk to you about to billion-dollar corporations, and there's dozens of them that are looking, right? So stop it. Surely, I keep saying, look, I'm confident. Remember, I think I can do anything. Here's what I know I could do. I know that every day of my life, I had the confidence to wake up every morning and go, I can be 147. Right? Not number 1, not number 50, not number 82, 147. Surely, come on, you got a couple of students there that think they're 147th, right? Yeah. Go do it. Go do your comic book.
Where do you think comics will be in the grand scheme of things? What do you think we're going to be looking at in 5 to 10 years? Is it going to be a major shift to online? Do you think it's going to be still the tangible, hold it in your hands books, smaller lines? What do you think is going to happen as we move forward? More companies?
So here's what I'm telling you, Anthony, I don't care. And because here's why I don't care. Because here's what I know will never go away. Words and pictures combined.
Right.
What may change is a delivery mechanism of where you get that combo, but I will just morph to wherever the eyeballs are. So if they start saying, hey, most people are now reading their comic books because they're projecting them on the side of blimps, then I guess I'll get my stuff put on the side of blimp. I don't care. It's still going to be comic books. I'm still going to be doing exactly what I'm doing. It's just a delivery mechanism. I just need to be somewhat cognizant, if you will, of the business maybe moving in a different direction. If I was to hazard a guess, I think that they don't understand comic books are a unique beast. In that I know that they were able to transition movie and TV and music into digital, and it worked. I don't see comic books doing that quite as easy. Maybe eventually, but I think it's going to take a longer grind, because I think the piece that they're missing is that one of the reasons that people buy the comic books is because there is a big portion of us that still go to comic shops and conventions and try to get near the creative people, the celebrities, if you will, of the books. And when people bring me stuff to sign, 99.9% of the time it's a comic book, right? So it's not, hey, here's a piece of paper. Hey, here's, you know, the odd time they'll bring a photo or something, or whatever else. Even as many toys as I make, it's still comic books. And so I think that bond between the book and our potentially meeting that person that we like so much someday, or sending it through the mail so they can sign it so I can have it. I think that's way more visceral than businesses think that they are. So I know they think comic books are going to do what everybody else does. I wouldn't put my Vegas odds that it would go even close to being as fast as those other ones.
Also, guys, to all the students, I just want to remind you guys, if you guys have any questions, write them in the comments section. So then this way we could pull them up and we could throw them over the top. So then this way we can ask. All right. Trends. Should creators constantly be trying to pay attention to what's going on with trends? Should they try to incorporate it? Or if you notice a trend, is it too late? What should they be doing with their work and trying to see what's going on?
The only trend I would worry about is the business trend, right? Mm-hmm. So like I said, if they're migrating it from paper to the side of blimps, I would be mindful of that. The artwork that you're doing, look at, if you can write and draw compelling stories, that's eternal, right? And how do we know that? Because you can turn on your TV and you can get everything from a future, you know, sci-fi, a modern day, and something that takes place 100 years, 500 years ago in the past, right? Storytelling is storytelling is storytelling. So it's just a matter of how clever anybody does any of those that we then attach the word successful, right, to it. So are there good superhero movies? Yep. Are there bad ones? Of course, right? Same with Westerns, romantic comedies, and dramas. So I wouldn't, as an artist, especially at the beginning, there's enough things you got to worry about, which is just trying to get your skills better. I would just get my skills as good as possible, and then worry about some of the other sort of distractions on the side. I mean, I don't know that I wake up and have done any story intentionally because of a trend. I mean, of any kind of trend. I mean, maybe news. Maybe it's the odd time you'll do a story that is a little sort of news relevant, but short of that.
Awesome. So we're getting some questions, and I want to make sure I get the students' questions over to you because they're starting to pour in, which is awesome.
I just almost says, was there any time that said that I ever wanted to quit? No, it's the opposite. I want everybody else to quit. I would go up in the rankings. What are you talking about? Right? Like if you're the last person standing, then you're going to be considered the best in the business if there's only one of you. Right? No. So no, here's what I would tell you. The best people that I thought that were the best creators were my biggest inspiration. The people who drove me to want to get a job were the ones that were not very good. So there wasn't one day when I was trying to break in that I thought I was going to take John Byrne or George Perez or Keith Pollard's spot. What I did think I could do was there was a bunch of, I thought, mediocre books that I thought had average to below average art in it. And I went, I can do below average. Shoot, right? So if you think about it in sports terms, you're never going to replace your all-star, right? But if somebody on the baseball team's batting 220 and is on the roster, the question is, do you think you can bat 225? Forget being an all-star right now. Can you bat 225? Because you can bat 225, then you might get on the roster. So I was always, it was no coincidence, let me tell you, everybody, that a lot of my samples in the last year weren't X-Men samples or Captain America, whoever the better artist. It was the books that were selling horrible. I went to all the horrible books and I said, man, I think they need a new artist. So I would draw those characters and send it to those editors, because they might go, wow, look at, here's a new kid. He's horrible, just like my current horrible artist, except for he draws the eyes straight. My guy right now draws them crooked. You know, maybe get him on the phone. So Yeah, like I never sent in an X-Men page. What are you talking about? They had John Byrne. I was never getting that job.
Let's see here. Let me go. What did you struggle with the most when you were learning to draw comics?
Anatomy to start with. I mean, like anatomy, but you got to draw it. But as I've gotten older and I now employ people, the thing I look for the most is storytelling, right? And when I'm giving notes back to my artists and my writers, I rarely say write better or draw better, right? That just comes with time and it's your style. What matters is clarity on the pages so that you don't ever break the magic of what it is that you're reading, right? And I mean, Frank Miller, I think, is a glowing example of somebody whose actual artwork is, I wouldn't put it in my top 10, just in terms of his physical artwork, but his storytelling is impeccable. And when you combine his artwork with that impeccable storytelling and then his writing skills, you get this package that to me is way more dazzling than somebody who may draw prettier pictures than him and have a higher line quality and quantity. I mean, I put my artwork in that one, that it doesn't matter. If I'm looking at your pages and there's a million lines, but I don't know what's happening, I'll take the person who gives me half the number of lines but gives me clarity so that I never confuse the readers. Why? Because a good comic book should be like a good movie or good TV show. There should never be a moment. Every one of your favorite movies, I bet you, has one thing in common. It sucked you in for the 2 hours and it never let you go. And then the credits came and you were back to reality, right? The bad movies, you're going, why are they doing that? How come they're doing that? Why are they doing it? Like, and you break the magic of just being suckered into it. And bad storytelling to me is the same thing. It's like asking why the young lady is running in high heels when the killer's behind her, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to do it. So Frank Miller just tells storytelling and doesn't get bogged down with whether his pictures are pretty or not.
This is from, so the previous question was from Dennis Wyhart. This one's from Angelo Concepcion. What is the best way to go about creating an original work, whether it's through a collaborative effort or a solo endeavor? What is the best way to get yourself motivated to keep pushing on with an original creator-owned comic?
All right, Angelo, we're gonna circle back to the same thing, right? I coach baseball at a very high level. I played at a high level myself. And I used to tell the parents all the way up till they were 17, there's 3 things I can't teach any of your kids. 1, can't teach them to throw harder, because if I could, they'd all be throwing 150 miles an hour. And so they'd do the same on TV. Can't teach them to run faster, right? If they're average, I'll get them a little bit above average. I can coach them up, but that's about it. I'm never going to go average to fast and slow to average. Never going to happen. And number 3, the big one, the one that the parents didn't understand, I can't get your kids to give a shit. Yep. Either they're going to hustle and they want to work hard, or they don't. And me pushing them and you yelling from the stands is not going to change them, right? It's like dogs. There's only 2 kinds of dogs. One that bites and one that doesn't. Now, if you've ever had a pet dog that doesn't bite, they're awesome. The neighbor kids can sit on their head and fart on them and pull their tail, and at worst, that dog will walk into another room to get away from the kids. What it will never do is bite. What I'm saying is that if you don't care, if you don't have the passion, nobody's putting it in you. Nobody, you either have it or you don't, right? You shouldn't have to wake up and go, who's going to motivate me today to do this thing that's going to change my life? Who's going to motivate you? We're going back to the same thing. That's you, dude, right? It's your book. It's your character. And if you can't get motivated over your character, why should anybody else worry about getting motivated over it? So that was never, for me, that was never a thing. I was, like I said, I was the opposite. I always thought my rutabaga man was always the coolest story, regardless of the bad feedback I got, right? So, and Broccoli Kid was super cool, even though it never went anywhere. So you just find your outlets. Come on. Every story has a place where it's relevant. Might not be at Marvel, DC, but there's a place for it. But don't self-edit yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, people ask me the other question: what happens when you get writer's block or drawer's block? Here's what I do: I write and I draw that day. If you're gonna do, especially if you're doing monthly comic books, if you're gonna do monthly comic books, here's what you have to accept: they're all not going to be pretty. They're all not going to be awesome pages, right? It's like giving birth to babies, right? You give birth to 1,000 babies. Some are going to be super handsome and beautiful, and others are going to be kind of ugly, right? And a bunch in between. You just have to accept that some days your pages are not going to be awesome. What matters is your body of work in the long run. It's your body of work. I've had this conversation. I was having it not long ago with a guy like Greg Capullo. Greg Capullo is the greatest artist working in comic books right now, from my perspective, bar none. There's not even a close second to him in terms of skill, storytelling, and the quality and the quantity of work he puts out. And yet he laments sometimes about, well, I don't know if this is good enough or that's good enough, or whatever. And I asked the same thing. I go, great. There isn't one book, one page, one panel, or one cover that you could do right now in your career that would basically get people off your bandwagon. What is it? What could you put on your next Batman cover that people will go, that's it. I've had enough of it. He gave me 10,000 great pages, but that one page, no, it's actually the opposite. Once you've got the body of work and they like you, they will forgive your mistakes and your transgressions. They'll just go, yeah, it's not his best, but he did all those other super awesome pages of so-and-so character and so-and-so. You, like, I don't care. Like, I never get any of my artists to redraw a panel. I give them the comment. I tell them why I think they can improve on it, and I get them to worry about it next issue. Why? We've got a deadline. We've got a deadline, and we've got to get the books out. Like, how do you think I'm up to issue 316 on Spawn? By being precious with it? Hell no. By getting the book done, because there's 12 months and I got to get 12 books done, period. Are they all great? Nope. Am I proud of all of them exactly the same? Nope. But is there 316 of those issues? Yep. Am I proud of that? Absolutely.
Have a question from Ryusei Sawada, who also draws an awesome Spawn, by the way. I got to be honest. He draws an awesome Spawn.
Okay, send me your samples.
And he's got a great question. He goes, what was the biggest inspiration upon creating such an iconic character like Spawn? I have to get that in there. I have to.
Right. So, well, let's go back to the beginning. You don't know you're creating a character that matters, right? So just put that to the side, right? I mean, I co-created Venom. I told you that I created Venom because I wanted to draw Spider-Man in his red and blue costume, and Peter Parker had the black costume. So it was just me trying to get the black costume off Peter Parker so I could draw the red and blue, because that was Spider-Man, right? So that was my whole fight. I was just going, I'm not going to draw Spider-Man in a black costume. I mean, look, at a normal person, probably every one of your students, if they said, hey, draw Spider-Man in a polka dotted plaid uniform, they would all go, oh my God, I'm drawing Spider-Man. So you had to be a little bit sort of odd like I am, where I was like, no, I won't draw Spider-Man unless he's back in his classic red and blue. But he was in the black, so I had to say, well, what if I just put it on another character and I'll give you a design, and end up being Venom. And Venom ends up being this big giant accident. So if you go and get issue 300 Amazing Spider-Man graded, it says the origin of Venom. That's not what that issue is for me. Issue 300 is, I finally got the black costume off Peter Parker, and I get to finally draw Peter Parker in his red and blue costume, which was the last page of that book. That was the first time I felt like I was drawing Spider-Man. So, okay. So the inspiration for Spawn, it's sort of always been that he's just sort of a bad version of me, right? I mean, I put a lot of, I just go, what would I do in this situation? Like, God damn it. And I put it down there, but I also was old enough by the time I created him that I had, I don't know how old I was, 30 or something like that. That I'd seen the world, and it struck me that why are all the heroes all white, and why do we sort of have these tendencies? And I knew people of minority, descent and look, and that I saw with my own eyes, especially playing baseball. You get a big mixture that had to put up with stuff that I admired that they would put up with it. Not blatant, full on racism, but just that blatant one where when you try to push back on it, then we as good old white boys will always go, come on, I'm just kidding. Come on, lighten up. We do the same with bigotry and with misogyny. It's always a joke. It's always a joke. So I said, what if I do a character, put him from head to toe, make him a minority character? Why not? Why not? Mm-hmm. But I'm gonna burn the skin off him, so I'll take away the one thing that basically triggers people. And will they just judge Spawn by his actions of being a hero and not get tied into any of the other stuff? And I knew somewhere it was working, because I remember about a year and a half later, I was in Texas, and some good old boys came. I think one of them even had their cowboy hat on, and they went, "Mr. McFarlane, just want to say thank you for all that Spider-Man stuff, and Spawn, he's my favorite." And I looked at that dude, and I went, I could see him and his buddy, and I went, you remember that's a black man underneath that costume, and you could see in that second, like he'd forgotten. Just Spawn was just badass. He was cool. So I went, so it's working. That they just like him as a hero, and that was my goal, was to just say, can I just make a hero? Who cares? Like the background of it, can I just make a hero that's relevant? And we're 30 years into it, and we're here. So
I know we're trying to keep it tight because I know you have to run pretty much.
We got another 15 minutes. I gotta go to my Spawn movie meeting in a little bit. So that one's come along.
I wanted to, so let me try to squeeze in one more question, and then
come on, we got 15 minutes. Keep going.
All right, excellent. Let's see here. Must artists? This is from John Hazard, instructor at the school. Must artists also
pressure's on him because he did big shot.
Must artists also be business people to be successful? Should they have to be both?
No, but I'd advocate for it. And so here's what I would say, John, is that is if you don't want to be bogged down with that, and I would say that that's probably 80% of creative people don't, like, they just want to create, and I get it. That's how we're wired. We just want to do our thing. I would have enough of an understanding of the business side, find people that you can trust that can handle some of it. But, and here's the crucial piece, don't trust them 100%. Because you've seen this not with just comic books and artists or whatever else. You've seen it with small businesses, that somebody's got the idea, they give it to somebody else, and somebody's not paying attention to the books, or they're embezzling or some silly stuff in between. And all of a sudden it's like, well, man, I wasn't paying attention. You have to. You can't trust, especially it's your career. You can't trust literally letting somebody else do it without you understanding what it is that they're doing. You just don't have the time to do it. So you don't have to build your own house, but you should understand how building a house works, so that when they tell you the decisions they're making, you can understand, oh, that was a good or a bad decision. And oh, by the way, they can teach that to you while your head's down and you're drawing, right?
Mm-hmm. Question from Amy Chu, instructor at the school as well, and also super talented writer. Do you think comic creators will ever be able to unionize, or are we doomed to failure?
I think creative people in general are skittish We're neurotics. I'm in that pool. It's our blessing and our curse. I run into it, with very famous people in Hollywood that I would apply that to. So you have to take our funkiness, because it's what also gets the ideas out to the world. But that odd, quirky nature that some of us have doesn't, for the most part, make us very warrior-like, right? I have found, I guess, as I've gone through time, that what's natural for me is not sort of a common trait, which is this sort of baseball super jock athlete competitive guy mixed with this artist guy. It's this weird combo that I just like, no shit, I'll go do it on my own. I'm not drawing Spider-Man in black. I'm not gonna fix your pages. I'll quit. We're gonna start Image comic books. I'm gonna do a character that isn't a big white boy. I mean, I'm gonna make my own toys. Who cares about Hasbro and Mattel? I don't know. For me, sort of being a warrior is just sort of second nature. It's not something that I find a lot of my peers have or want to have, and it's not necessary. So the unionizing, I like I said, I tried, and it was staggering that the people with the least were the most resistant to it, right? So I don't know what to do with it. I wish I could. So at some point, we did a small version of it called Image Comics. So
awesome. And would you say that grit is really the biggest factor to making it in the industry?
Grit?
Grit.
No. At the end of the day, you got to have the skill.
Yeah.
You got to have the skill first and foremost. I mean, the all-star is the person with the skill and the grit, the hustle, right? And so, what are you talking about? There are hundreds and hundreds of people who draw way better than I do, right? I've gotten ahead of them because I've got some skills, but I've got the hustle. But on my best day, I've got the hustle and I've got this much talent. Those other creative people, they've got this much talent. They can match my hustle. I can never be them. I can never draw as good as them, but they could hustle as much as me, right? So there's nothing stopping the hustle. There's something stopping the skill set. When I played baseball, I was the same way. I was the biggest hustler on the field. Why? Because I was the smallest guy in my lineup. And what was frustrating was when I was looking at some of the other talented people, they were 6'4", but they were lazy. But on their best day, they could have been 6'4" and they could have hustled like me. I could never be 6'4", right? I could hustle R1. So at some point, the skill part of it will be the thing that will basically get you to the real top of the mountain. You gotta have that. Shoot.
Question from student Bobby Crucifix. What is your least favorite thing to draw? And also, that time that you ate a sandwich during a meeting with people trying to argue with you over hockey figures and the devil you know is iconic. Thank you, Todd.
Well, let me just say that the stories that my employees and my family have, I have very few recollections because just me being me. They're like I know I don't remember I wore those pants or that shorts or I was eating or do like I would just being taught. So you guys write your own memoir. So what was the beginning of the question then?
What is your least favorite thing to draw?
Oh shoot. I mean, it seems weird, but like people and buildings, like real stuff. Because here's the thing: when you're doing real stuff, you have to get enough of it right for it to work, because people will know if it's wrong, right? But if you're doing like monsters or alien spaceships or cool bazookas or debris or speed lines or like all this other stuff. I mean, what are you talking about? Take a look at my drawings and you're going to see BS all over it, right? I've got drawings where if you actually dissect it, you're going to go, okay, yeah, I guess that was Spider-Man, and there's a little bit of Venom, but most of it's just a bunch of stuff around him. Now, I think I do a pretty good job at the stuff, and it takes people's eye away from it because they go, oh my God, look at this, look at all the line work, and oh my God, and they give me a lot of credit, but it just meant that I didn't have to draw the guy's legs, and I was able to hide like half the anatomy on one of the bodies. And maybe 10% on the other one, so I didn't have to actually get that part right. So, the old classic, you guys know, if in doubt, black it out, right? Stay away from your weaknesses. So in buildings, you have to get them right. You have to draw and you have to rule lines, like, oof. So that can be tedious.
Another question from a student, Ethan Farina.
Ethan.
If you had never made sport, but the idea was new in your head right now, what steps would you make to release him today? How would you organize yourself?
Probably the same way. And I understand there's different ways to get to that point in terms of, like, again, we have like an internet and there's more companies and whatever else. But it's interesting to me, Anthony, that we get people and they go, well, Todd, I understand, but you grew up in a different era, you and Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld, and it was different, and it doesn't apply to me. I think it's a cop-out. I think it's a cop-out. And then it's like, okay, well, that's fine. What about, Robert Kirkman came along and he sort of hit lightning in a bottle. And they're like, yeah, but, Robert Kirkman, that was like 15 years ago, and it's a different time. I'm like, okay, no, that's fine. Okay, what about like Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona on Saga? And like, yeah, but that's that, and then what ends up happening, you start to hear that no matter how many times you keep telling them that it's doable, it doesn't matter about the era. Again, going back to sports, there's always going to be another all-star, right? I get it. Willie Mays doesn't play anymore, and Hank Aaron just passed away. We got Mike Trout, right? So there's always going to be somebody else. And the question is, and this is the one I don't get, there should only be one question that you should be asking yourself every day. Why not me? Why not me? And so when they sit there and go, well, I can't be Utah, and I'm like, why? And I can't be Robert Kirkman. Why? You can't be Brian. Why? Right? You don't know if you don't ever try. For sure, if you never try, you're right. It's 100% failure rate that you'll never be where we're at if you never try. But if you try, who knows? What you think when I started, little white cracker Canadian kid trying to break into comic books, it wasn't even near New York City, that I could barely draw eyes straight. You think that I knew I was going to have the career I had? Of course I didn't. It wasn't planned. I was just trying to get into the business, and I just let everything take care of itself. So you just need to put all the efforts into getting into the business and then let the opportunity go from there, right? Come on.
It's funny,
because like I said, I got two things to tell you. I got everybody here. I got two things to tell you because I do comic books, right? I'm going to split myself. Has your dad, I'm going to give you what I just said. Go advocate, raise your hand, tell them you'll do it. Anything they say, always say yes. Even if you can't do it, say yes, because the people that are better at you might not raise their hand, so you're going to get the job, right? Okay, fine. I'm going to give it. That's dad. That's half my personality. The other half is I hope you keep making excuses. I hope you talk yourself out of it for the rest of your natural life. And you know why? I'll never have to compete with you ever. And the thing is, you may actually be better than me, but you'll make my job easy because I'll never have to compete against you because you just don't want to basically put yourself out there and get a little bit of criticism or it might be some failure. Please do me a favor. This is Todd the businessman talking. Please do me a favor and don't compete with me. Makes my job way, 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 way easier. As your dad, I wouldn't let Todd the businessman fucking have 2 seconds on his own. I'd go after that dude.
Yep. That was awesome. Really, last thing, I think you hammered it right there. Do you have any final words for the students? Anything else? Like, that was awesome, just what you just said, but do you have anything else that you would want to give to them before they get out there?
Youth matters. I think youth matters. I don't say that in a physical way. I say that in a sort of brainwave way, in that the people that are coming up that are looking at doing art and comics, you have, like, I'm already sort of built in Jim Lee, and we already have our styles, and we're not going to change too much. You're the ones that have the potential to put on paper, whether it's a story and or storytelling and or style, something that is slightly different than what exists right now, because you don't know what it is quite yet. So like, I take that as I'm not as good as you guys, you vets. I would take that as, I don't know how good I can be yet. And I'm not saying everybody's going to be a star, but I'm of your 40, there's 40. The odds are going to say that there's 4 or 5 of you that don't know how good you are right now, and that you may be surprised if you keep applying, but applying yourself. But if you don't, then you're going to let the people that aren't quite as good as you get those opportunities, because those opportunities are going to have to get filled.
Yep.
Somebody needs to draw every one of these books, and they're going to get done. Let's use movies as an example. I don't know if you've ever watched movies and turn to the person next to you and go, how'd they make that movie? I could have written that movie. That was horrible. You know how come they do that? Because every year they have to put out a quantity amount. They have a fixed amount of movies they have to put out. And so if you're an executive at Sony and you have to put out 20 movies, and you take people in and they give you their ideas, and they give you 400 great ideas, guess what's going to happen? You're going to make 20 movies, and 20 movies are going to be great because you got 400 great ones to pick from. But what about the opposite happens? What if you only got 5 great ideas? You're still making 20 movies. You have to.
Mm-hmm.
Which means you're going to be making 10, 15 movies that aren't very good, right? So sometimes like, those books are coming out, especially the monthly books, they're coming good, bad, or indifferent. And I would do everything I could to see if I could get there. You don't have to be innovative. You don't have to be original. You don't have to be all that. Some of that will come. You just need to be skilled enough that you can hold a deadline on a book that needs artists, and let them pay you to get better, right? My biggest thing was, my greatest moment was, they're going to give me money to practice drawing. Woo! Woo! And you get to call yourself a pro at the beginning. Woo! Okay, like, and if you look at, like, I put out a book about my artwork, you can see the progression of the art getting better. Why? Because I was getting paid to draw 12 hours a day. They were paying me to draw 12 hours a day. Of course you're going to get better. Of course you are.
Todd, I think I can say this on behalf of everybody. This was awesome. And really, I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your day. I know you got that meeting coming up with the Spawn movie, and I'm psyched about that too. And
right, I'm a director, right? At the age of 60, I'm going to start a new career. Let's go. Come on. Hey. Let me also just say, just so, because don't, like, age is a weird thing. I think I'm going to live to be 100. I'm just determined to, right? And if I'm even close to being true, that means that I've got 40 more years, right? I've only been doing comic books for 35. That means I'm not even halfway through my comic book career.
It's awesome.
So what? Like, what do you guys? There's so much time for you guys still to do it, right? And if you can get in it, you can do it for a long time. You don't have to retire. It's a great occupation. You don't have to retire. You can do this. So come on, go. I want to compete against you. I want to compete against you. Make me look like an idiot. That would be my best wish I could have, is that I would see the youth finally making me redundant. I would love to be redundant because that means there'd be a lot of awesome stuff out there. So it's like, Todd, he's an old man. He's like Frank Sinatra. Used to be relevant, but not anymore. So
I'm going to hang up a sign in the hallway. I'm not joking. And it's going to say, we're coming for you, Todd.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Make Todd an idiot. That's it. That's my goal. Quote. Make Todd an idiot in quotes by Todd, right?
Awesome.
Yes. Yeah.
No. Thank you for real. Thank you so much. This was so cool. And you're the best, man. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks, Todd.
You're the best.
You're badass, man.
I only have
Awesome. All right, Todd.
One request. I expect 3 years from now that this camera is flipped, and I'm listening to one of you guys.
That's awesome. I think we can make it happen.
Yep.
I think we'll make it happen.
All right. Good.
Awesome. Good luck. Thank you so much. Really.
All right. Good. Best of luck.
You're a god,
Thank you, Todd.
You're a god. Yeah.
Later.
Love you, man.
That was